staying with us. I'm Ana Cabrera reporting from New York as we continue our breaking news coverage. Just moments ago, air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv. The Israeli military says Iran is attacking again. President Trump says he expects to be in the Situation Room with his national security team this morning after abruptly cutting his G7 trip short. And he says he's working on something better than a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, but also insists that he's not too much in the mood to negotiate because Iran just can't have a nuclear weapon. The president also moving more military assets to the region. A second carrier strike group is now on its way, bypassing its scheduled stop in port. And ahead of that Situation Room meeting, the president this morning publicly dismissed the intelligence assessment of his own director of national intelligence.
Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
Well, just moments ago, Director Gabbard told NBC News she and the president are on the same page. We began the hour with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, national security and military correspondent Courtney Kube, former CIA and State Department official Ned Price, and Iraq War combat veteran and chair of urban warfare studies with the Madison Policy Forum, Major John Spencer. Monica, where do things stand at the White House now that the president is back?
Well, we do expect him to convene with his top national security aides in the coming hours. Remember, the official explanation was that he was cutting short that trip to the G7 in Canada to deal with what's going on in the Middle East and that he wanted to be monitoring the situation from here, as he did on Friday when much of this was kicking off, and he wanted to be sure to be able to be face-to-face with some of his key officials and monitoring, again, everything if decisions need to be made in real time. But there are some questions here, Anna, about specifically why he felt the need to come back last night as he did, with things as unclear as they are right now. And his official explanation, again, was that he wanted to be able to deal with this. But there are also some more contradictory statements that the president has made when it comes specifically to this conflict and about the potential U.S. involvement. But overall, he is trying to urge a diplomatic solution. He says he believes there can still be an opportunity for peace and for talks to resume between the U.S. and Iran through some intermediaries about curbing Iran's nuclear capabilities. And he is also talking specifically about that sound you played when it comes to his own assessment about the need to do this because he did believe, quote, that Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon. So now what remains to be seen is what the U.S. will do with that information, whether it will continue to support Israel, which we do believe defensively it will. And the Pentagon Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is saying the U.S. is positioned defensively specifically for that reason. But we expect that they will be gathering in the next couple of hours, and then a lot more will come from that, Anna.
Ned, if I flash back to March when the director of national intelligence said this, quote, the IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, then we hear from the president today. What do you make of what appears to be conflicting statements at the very least in their assessments between the president and the DNI?
Well, I don't know that we should give the personal assessment of the president of the United States much credibility here compared to what the intelligence community has said for nearly 20 years now. This is not an assessment that Tulsi Gabbard first put out in March. This is an assessment that the IC has made, the intelligence community has maintained since 2007, judging that in the year 2003, Iran had an active nuclear weapons program. That is to say, it was seeking to actually build a nuclear weapon, but ceased those activities in 2003. For the president to now say that the intelligence community is wrong, he is contradicting some 20 years of intelligence that has gone into that just as you said, was reaffirmed most recently by Tulsi Gabbard in March. So I think the broader question here, Anna, there are really two. what are Israel's plans, intentions, its objectives? And secondly, where does the United States stand in all of this? When Israel started this operation last Thursday, it made it sound like it was going after Iran's nuclear program, trying to defang its military. Now that may be evolving, and we've seen indications, including the news that NBC confirmed that Iran was seeking to go after the supreme leader, to suggest this might be about something bigger and even regime change in Iran. Second, and perhaps even more importantly, where does the United States stand in all of this? And Monica said this was contradictory. I think that is even putting it lightly, because President Trump has taken almost every single position imaginable on Israel's conduct in this operation. Initially, he said, don't do it. Then he called the initial effects excellent. After talking to President Putin, he called for de-escalation. He later told ABC News the United States might get involved. Last night, he ordered everyone in Tehran to evacuate. But then later he signed on to a G7 statement that called for de-escalation. So we don't know where the United States stands in this, and that's a big problem, Anna.
Yeah, there were a lot of back and forths and whiplash along the way in the past few days. Courtney, the Pentagon, we now know, is moving more assets to the Middle East. The president says Iran won't touch U.S. troops. Bring us the latest on U.S. involvement militarily at this point.
Yeah, and at the Pentagon, that's really the biggest concern, is that somehow the U.S. gets pulled into it, or we see U.S. military or personnel in the region who are injured, or even worse, as this back and forth continues between Iran and Israel. Now, the U.S., as you mentioned, is moving another carrier strike group into the region. The USS Nimitz was in Asia. I mean, it's very important to point out, they were supposed to have a port call in Vietnam, which is pretty rare and difficult to arrange, and it was canceled at the last minute so that they could move them forward to the Middle East, where they ultimately were going to be going anyway. They'd be going in to eventually swap out the USS Carl Vinson. You see it on the screen there, but now instead there's going to be an overlap of about a month or so of the two of them there in the region. Keep in mind that the last several carrier deployments to the region have basically all been extended, in some cases for months, because of ongoing tensions in the region. The Vinson is already there. As I said, there are associated ships with it, and the U.S. also has some destroyers, ballistic missile-capable destroyers in the Mediterranean. They're moving more into the region. Anna, what our viewers should take from all of these moves is this provides more U.S. military capability for defensive posture. So if, in fact, Iran is launching off a barrage of missiles or drones or whatever it is towards Israel, the U.S. can help with that defense. But they also bring a significant offensive capability if, in fact, the United States does get drawn into this in a more military, some sort of a more military fashion. Beyond that, though, aircraft carriers are often used for a show of presence, a show of strength, a show of force, and they do have that ultimately that capability to provide that. We also have heard about additional tankers. Those are aerial refueling aircraft that are moved into the region. Some of them are for an exercise, but some of them are also to be there should, in fact, this get to a point where the U.S. military gets more directly involved, Anna.
Major, what are your thoughts about the possibility of the U.S. getting more involved militarily?
I mean, that's definitely nothing that I want to see, and the Secretary of Defense has been very clear on that. It's not what they want to see. This is about defending American forces in the region, but also defending our ally, Israel, as Iran launches ballistic missiles towards civilian areas. It's not what I want to see.
Let's listen to what Richard Engel is hearing as he's speaking with senior officials across the Middle East. This is what they're telling him about the situation.
They're telling me that this all feels like 2002 all over again, that there's discussion of redrawing the map of the Middle East, changing the mentality of the Middle East, regime change in the Middle East, allegations of weapons of mass destruction imminently being ready and imminently going to be used in a variety of locations. And not here necessarily in Israel, but across the Arab world, I'm hearing this on a daily basis. People are worried, are we back in 2002? Are we back in 2003 all over again?
And then take a look at what Israel's Minister of Defense posted today. It translates to, quote, I warn the Iranian dictator, those who follow in Saddam Hussein's footsteps will end up like Saddam Hussein. Major, do you think regime change in Iran is where this is all headed, and is that the answer?
No, I don't think that's where it's headed. I don't think, people talk about forever wars. This is actually ending a forever war. Iran has been as the G7 said, the biggest instability in the Middle East for a very long time. And it wasn't just international or United States intelligence that reported on their nuclear progression. The the International Atomic Energy, the morning before Israel attacked, said that for the first time in 20 years that Iran is in violation of non-nuclear proliferation. It is building a bomb. This is ending that program, and it is important to keep the objectives very limited. So I haven't heard anybody say the objective is regime change. If that's a byproduct that the 90 million Iranians that are under this terror of the regime are freed, that's a byproduct. But it is important for this war to keep the objectives limited. This is about rolling back that Iranian nuclear weapons program that is and was close to breakout, as they call it.
But at what point can they say we've done it? Because we've already seen a tremendous amount of military action, and according to the Israelis, destroyed military missile launch sites, is what our understanding is, inside Iran. All of these commanders who have been wiped out. Multiple nuclear facilities hit, right? At what point is enough enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we usually put rational actor theory on war. You would think the Khomeini, the mullahs would say, okay, we're hurt here. 20 senior commanders, Natanz, Fordow, all the nuclear sites hit. But it is an assessment of rolling it back, but war is a political goal. And that's why I think Trump is honest to say you weren't negotiating in good faith. Come back to the table, negotiate a complete dismantlement of your nuclear program, because they lost 9 nuclear scientists as well.
Right.
You're right. There has been a lot of damage. When is it rolled back enough? A couple months, a couple years? Ultimately, the goal is, and I think that's what the G7 was pushing for and what President Trump is, come to the table, agree to dismantle your nuclear program altogether. The world would be a much worse place if Iran got a nuclear weapon. Not only do they chant death to America before death to Israel, but they have great aspirations, and this would actually spin off to lots of other people wanting a nuclear weapon. We don't need terror regimes having nuclear weapons.
And of course, we know that Iran was at the negotiating table before Israel launched this attack. Ned, how do you see it? Is there a military solution that at the end of the day leaves the world in a safer place?
Well, Anna, just to be very clear about this, the IAEA did not say that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. The intelligence community, as I mentioned before, has for 20 years maintained that Iran does not have a weaponization program. They are enriching uranium at an alarmingly high rate to a percentage that is far too high. But the U.S. intelligence community has no information that Iran has moved to actually build a bomb. And I think that is very important as we talk about what's going on now. Is there a military solution to this? Yes, there is a military solution in the sense that the United States has the capability to go after Fordow, this facility that is buried deep into a mountainside in the holy Iranian city of Qom. The question is, should we do it? Yes, we can do it, but there's a difference between can and should. It would be far preferable to end this program diplomatically rather than through U.S. military involvement. And that is understating. It would be far more preferable to do it diplomatically. I say that for 2 reasons. Number one, it would not drag the United States into a war that should not be our war. But just as importantly, even if the United States uses its assets, the bunker buster bombs, to go after Fordow, it might set the Iranian program back months, maybe even years at best. But if Iran is determined to acquire a nuclear weapon, it will not set back that intention permanently. The only way we can verifiably and permanently prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon is through diplomacy. It's what we did in the Obama administration. It's what we sought to get back into in the Biden administration after President Trump recklessly left the Iran deal in 2018. And I sure hope it's what we can do again now in 2025.
That diplomatic path is uncertain at this moment. Ned Price and Major John Spencer, thank you. Monica Alba, Courtney Cubie, thank you, ladies, for your reporting. Up